So hey guys, I'm here with VLADETA Radovanovic. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's a bit cold here and snowy, but other than that, really good.
How does it compare with Canada? Do you know?
In terms of weather,
Right.
well, we have a variety of different types of weather. I mean, we have the hot summer, the cold winter, but so far we didn't have any really cold temperatures. It's winter now here, so it's -5 or -10. But it started snowing today and yesterday, so yeah, we are getting used to it.
Okay, so but you're used to having snow every winter?
Yes, maybe 2 or 3 times, like for a week or 10 days, but not like whole winter with snow.
Okay, so not quite like Canada, but it gets a little bit cold. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so for people watching this that don't know about you, I will give a little bit of an introduction, and then I have a few questions for you. So this is part of the Growth Hacking Geniuses series. We have 4 topics. We have growth hacking, which is basically growth marketing, anything about marketing. B2B sales geniuses, we have e-commerce and leadership. So this is for the GHG Growth Hacking Geniuses series. So VLADETA started his professional career 10 years ago in different web and mobile projects. He's always been interested in building computer systems, both hardware and software. He founded Presta about 6 years ago, which is a one-stop shop for web and mobile. They deliver quality, tailor-made solutions for clients. And we've actually been working together on various projects for the last year or so, a little bit more than a year. And I've always been impressed with how reliable they are, consistent, and always quality work. So I'm definitely glad that you accepted to do this interview.
Yeah, don't mention it.
All right, great. So the first question I have for you is, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what is Presta about?
Yeah, so I finished my ICT bachelor's degree, and throughout my whole college, I was working different freelance projects, and afterwards I decided that I really wanted to continue doing that with a thought that if I didn't start it at that point, I wouldn't start it 10 or 15 years later. So I started with a friend, and then we got another friend, another one, and then the team started growing, and we got bigger and bigger projects. Obviously, there were ups and downs, but things really started to get big like 6 years ago, and we've been steadily growing ever since, and we are now a team of about 15. Obviously, there is someone new comes, someone leaves, etc. But in that matter, I tend to have like really professional and transparent communication and relationships with all the clients. That being said, all of our clients are recommended by someone, and we don't do any particular sales. And we are always, 90% busy, and utilization is really high. So I think that it speaks for itself.
That means you're delivering quality work and people are happy and satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, that's my idea. I want to give everything to the clients, like including the consultations, including the project management, including help with the defining what they actually need, or getting into details with the brief, with the requirements, and obviously design, execution, and testing at the end. So at the end, when we deliver some project, I want to make sure that it's really done according to the client's expectations.
But what I gotta say, I've been working with a lot of different freelancers, different programmers, designers, etc. And in terms of programmers especially, I think your programmers have been the only ones that I've never had any sort of problem with. We're always professional, always delivered. Whereas all the other programmers that I had, for most of it, they did good work, and then something happened. They stopped delivering. They, miscommunicated something, or there was some issues with all of them. So I gotta say, you're the only one that I worked with in terms of freelance programmers that were 100% good and reliable and professional. So
yeah, well, that's the difference. Sorry for interrupting. There's a difference between freelancers and the company, where freelancer is probably on his own, working from home, and maybe he can't schedule his tasks. He can't, deliver on time, and when he doesn't do that, everything else fails. Or he gets sick, or he gets something to do, and then he doesn't have a backup. He doesn't have someone to turn on if he has any issue. Whereas we are working in a team, and everybody can always ask some senior developer or ask some other colleague what to do, how to solve this issue, or even if they are sick, if they have some personal issues, there will be someone to take over the task and deliver it.
Right, that makes sense. And the rates were comparable to the freelancers I work with. So I think there's a lot of advantages to working with an actual company. You got to be careful to choose one that's really good, because in the eastern part of the world, it's not always the most, especially India. From my experience, it's not super reliable. So you got to be careful. But I was very happy to find finally a good company that was really good. So
thanks.
So what are your biggest failures and lessons that you learned from that?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I wouldn't call any of these issues, I wouldn't call them a failure. I would call them rather a lesson, because nobody can professionally do anything and say that they didn't have any failures. So I would probably circle out one where I started, that was like 5 years ago. I had a friend approached me who is designer and who wanted a reliable partner into building Team Forest templates. And obviously we had WordPress skill, we had skill with building templates, and he wanted someone reliable who can take over the development. So I took over his idea. We sat down, we agreed on who's going to do what, and I put our senior developer at the time to project, who later on wanted to partner up with us in the whole Team Forest idea and venture. Long story short, a couple of months later, although I really wanted to carefully define who is doing what, who is responsible for what, and most importantly, what are our expectations, 3 or 4 months later on, when we created our first template, starting sales, that was really going good. I mean, we agreed that having 100 sales for a first month was really good goal. I think we had like 130 sales for a first month, and then we started, taking profits. A month after that, they approached me and said, "Look, we don't need you. We don't need this. Whatever you are doing, we are good on our own, and we want to split." So that was a big lesson. I wouldn't call it a failure, as I learned that doesn't matter. I mean, if you're friends with someone, being friends is one thing, but business is really something else. Another lesson I've learned, I wouldn't say really hard way, but I had to learn it, is not keeping anything inside the project open to the discussion. Like before starting the project, I want everything defined, and I wouldn't start the project no matter how urgent it is for the client before we define everything. I mean, when I say everything, we don't have to go into really deep details, but important stuff, the stuff that can jeopardize the deadline or that can drastically change the timelines, that is something that really need to be defined. I speaking this because it happened few times, but the occurrence I'm speaking about is with one of the clients from Middle East, from Dubai, I think, where we had a Skype call where we defined what needs to be done and how we are going to take care of responsive tables. There was some big insurance company, and they had some tables with lots of data, and they wanted it to be responsive. So we agreed over Skype that it's not going to be possible to put all the columns, on your mobile phone. And later on, when we delivered what we agreed upon, he said, "No, this is not what I want. I want something else." And unfortunately, I didn't have any written trail of what we agreed on. So yeah, that would be another hard-learned lesson, not failure.
So how do you go about really clarifying the requirements, or you really make sure that everything is written and agreed upon and clear and detailed before you get started?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I still am finding a proper template for brief, for documentation, for user specification, whatever you want to call it. And the difference is that different projects require different templates and different type of documentation. I mean, is it a mobile app or a desktop app or a web browser app, or what technology is going to be used? They require different specifications. So at the moment, we are still creating documentation for each project without any templates, and we always take care to cover every possible aspect. I mean, we sometimes spend few hours a day, going through all of the functionality, going through all user scenario, like what happens if I change my profile name? What happens if I change my plan into the billing? I mean, everything needs to be thought of, and even with this, we sometimes, find a situation. What icon do we put for a client that just registered? We didn't thought of that. So it's a process, but really important one.
Okay, let's move on to the next thing. What are your biggest successes with client projects?
Every project that's finished and that client is happy with is a success project. So I wouldn't per se say, okay, this project is the biggest or the most successful one. But when I look back, I would say that the project that became live and had really big user impact and that had really big user base are the one that are probably the most successful ones. So one of the projects that I'm proud of is that we've been working on one big car dealership network, and we had this touch screen panel on every floor, on every entrance, where the users could engage with it and call for help, call for assistance. Another one is for one big Southeast Asia big fitness company, and they had their own, besides some mobile games and Facebook games, small ones, but nonetheless the games, and their different websites, because that's a big network. They had a network for their TV show, like a show that gets aired twice a week, and at that particular time the visits on the websites get really huge, so we had to take care of that automatically, like increasing the number of servers, number of instances, like 1 or 2 hours before the show, and closing them down a few hours afterwards. Other than that, we had one big mobile game or mobile app for Australian Olympics team last year. I mean, those are just some, but as I said, every successful project where the client is happy, where we delivered what the client expected, and at the end, when users really engaged with it in a way that we planned, that's a success for me.
Right. Okay. What would be your top 3 pieces of advice for, let's say, companies that want a website that generates sales? So not just a business card, a simple website that just gives a little bit of information, but websites that actually help to support sales and generate new leads, maybe with some lead magnets, opt-ins, lead landing pages, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the clients usually, from my experience, the clients usually have idea of what they want, and the issue is that sometimes they're not aware if there is a problem to be solved, if the users really need this digital application of whatever that is. So my first advice would be to make sure that there is a need for that. I mean, even when clients approach me with a project, with a budget, I would still encourage them to spend some time, spend some money into research if this is really something that the users will use. Maybe do some Facebook ads, Google ads, and just point them to a landing page and ask for their emails, like subscribe to newsletter field, and just see if there is enough user traction, if there is a problem that this client is solving. The second biggest advice would be what I already mentioned, is having proper documentation. I know that most of my clients are not technical enough in order to write something, but again, it doesn't have to be in technical terms, it just have to be in plain English. The same way you would explain your developer what you want this application to do, just write it in that same simple English, whatever you want to call it, like think about it, and after that we can sit and go through it, see if there are any flaws, if there are anything that could be improved. And the last advice would be to hire us or some UX specialist who would really go through this documentation and see what is the exact problem, what's the average user of this system, what is the proto person, as we want to call it, and try to put yourself in their shoes and see what are the steps and how this person thinks about, and based on that, devise a proper and easy to understand UX and flow throughout the app, throughout the web application, in order to make everything clear, everything really easy to use and understandable for users. So documentation, UX, and actual problem, if it exists.
Right. I would add a side note about UX. I had a chance to work with one of you guys, Zoran, I believe, for UX, and I gotta say it really helped with having another perspective, because I had some ideas as to what I wanted for the site, and I started putting that together, but I had some confusion about what would be best for the usability and the flow of information. And he came in and really, gave me some other examples of websites to get some inspiration from, which were really good. And then we sort of integrated that into a much simpler flow that made a lot of sense. I think it really helps to work with a UX guy, UX specialist. Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Definitely. I mean, this is someone who has experience, who is visual, but again, can get into other people's shoes and think about what is your need at that particular time, what do you want to achieve, and what's the best way, what's the easiest way, what's the most obvious way on how to do it. I mean, it helps a lot, really.
Absolutely. What are some design best practices for websites and mobile apps that, from your experience and working with your team as well?
Again, I would turn back to UX. I mean, definitely thinking about what's the best. There is no magic wand or magic tool or on what's best for every particular case. So I wouldn't be able to point out a single one, but definitely if someone wants to increase their sales, help out people throughout their websites, I think that the most important is reaching out to the community and establishing yourself as an expert. I mean, let's say that you are building shoes or selling shoes online. I mean, that's the most basic example. To me, you need to be engaged into this community. You need to establish yourself as someone with experience, but not only throughout marketing your website, but throughout explaining what are different types of shoes, what are different build processes, all different materials, just giving out to the community, like say you go to Quora and answer shoe related questions or manufacturer relating questions, and then establishing yourself bit by bit, as an expert in the field, and then eventually, having enough time, people will recognize you as a really good expert, as someone who is not selfish, as someone who is giving back to the community, and your sales are going to start to grow. I mean, even with your blog posts on Medium, on your own website, on like guest post blogging, or some use cases, that would be like probably the good advice for each industry, not for any particular one.
Okay, that's some good general advice. So let's talk more specifically, let's say about a homepage on a website. Would you recommend usually having a clear hero section with just a static image, no slider? And would you recommend having some clear calls to action? Maybe walk me through what you would recommend for like a homepage, especially the first screen before you start scrolling.
Yes, definitely. The first screen is the first impression, exactly the same when you meet someone in person. So your first impression is, like, I would say 80% of your conversion. So I don't like when websites have a video in this first hero section, because I'm not used to being, interrupted with a video. If I want to play video, I want to play it myself. I don't want it to be played automatically. Again, slider is good, but not too many sliders or not too quick sliders. So definitely you need to answer in this first part, what are you doing, why are you better than your competition, if there is any, and to explain in one sentence, in one visual, what is this that you are helping the people with. If you don't explain that, if I have to, go to your websites for 3 pages for 3 minutes, then it's not good. So having a clear answer on what am I doing, how can I help you, how can I solve your problem, that's the most important thing. Again, I don't want to see call to action too soon. It needs to be like really upfront and really visible, but not before I understand what are you doing. I mean, I've seen a couple of examples where the first hero image says like buy now. I don't know what I'm buying. I want to see the product. I want to see how it helps me. I want to see maybe some use cases or something before I click on buy now. But explaining users, what am I doing, what am I selling, how am I better than the competition is not always easy. And that's, besides a good UX strategy, a really good copyright. Besides UX, copyright is really important into explaining your visitors what is it that you do and what problem do you solve. So, besides actual images for the hero image, the copyright and the text on this image is really important. And as I said, I don't want to click on your call to action button unless I understand what is it that you do. And I would always try and test out different designs and different hero images with text and with different copyrights to the people that don't know what is this particular project about. I would just, ask them, can you take a look? Tell me what you think. I mean, do you understand what this product is? What does it do? How does it help you? And I would, try and see their response and action based on that.
Right, some form of user testing. Yeah, asking people for their first impressions. I think that really helps. And my last question is, you've been generous with your time. You've been sharing some of your wisdom and insights and experience. What would be your call to action? For people watching this, what would you like them to do? Maybe to qualify them a little bit if they have some web or mobile needs. What's your call to action here?
Yeah, well, as I said in the beginning, we always try to help out the clients, not just do the project and proceed to the next one. So we try to be really helpful and understand what their need is and help them out with that. Even if it's just on the development side or on the design side, or with the clients who come to me with just a rough idea but without any proper specification. I would always go one step further and help them out into doing a proper documentation, even if they find out that this is not what they want, or they don't think it will work, or they don't have enough budget. It's a process, and not every project can work out. But again, maybe they will come back in a while and appreciate the time invested into their project. So I would suggest that everybody should try building their own app or starting their own business, but first make sure that there is a need for it. Like do your research, invest a few $100 into some mobile ads or Facebook ads, and then see if there is enough traction. If there is enough traction, you will find your way into building it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, VLADETA. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime.
All right, well, and hopefully we're going to get to keep working together throughout the year and in the next years. I would love that.
I hope so.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.